Hello, Susie. Can you please introduce yourself for our viewers?
Sure. My name's Susie Lydon. I'm Assistant Professor of Plant Science at the University of Nottingham, and I run our undergraduate courses in plant biology.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And also thanks for being the local organiser for Botanical University Challenge 2023 in Nottingham. What was the biggest challenge in the planning of that?
Oh, my goodness. It was absolute fun, and I was absolutely loved being involved. I would say the biggest challenge was definitely running an event for the finals of University Challenge that was hybrid. So it was in person as well as having that online element. And that was technically really, really challenging. And that was definitely the difficult bit. The easy bit was just having loads of botanists around talking to each other.
Okay. So, but was there another highlight you want to mention?
Again, I think my highlight is seeing lots of young botanists just being able to interact, people from different institutions, and just seeing them just finding like-minded plant geeks. It was really, really nice to see.
Fantastic. Yeah, we had a great time. It was brilliant. And thanks very much again for your organisation. Okay, switching a bit. So you work on fossil plants. So plants have been dead a long time. If there's one research question that you could have the answer to, that obviously you don't, what would that question be?
It's a really good question. So I'm a Mesozoic girl. So I like the plants that are around. So ecosystems that are dominated by lots and lots of different seed plants. So you've got conifers, and you've got cycads, and you've got extinct groups like benatites, and lots of other gymnosperms that we don't have around now. But in those landscapes, pre the grass evolving, we must have had ground cover. And people talk about fern prairies as sort of this big ground cover, but you've got these enormous herbivores just hoovering up landscapes. And I would really like to know how that works, what the ground cover and what the understory as well, what they actually look like in Mesozoic times before the flowering plants came along. That would be, that would be my dream thing to answer that question.
Wonderful. So the reason that you don't have that view or know that is,
so the fossil record that we have is like snapshots of everything that's there, and we have species, and that's why there's this idea that in the late Cretaceous you've got these herbivores, these massive herbivores moving around in herds, and they're clearly designed for grazing. So they've got they've got skulls that look like horse skulls, and they've got teeth that are replacing themselves. So that's clearly what they're doing. And we've got ferns and horsetails and all of those kinds of species. I just want to know how that worked on such enormous scales. We know those plants are there.
Yes.
And they had to have been eating something. And it's not like you would just have bare earth. And it wouldn't be the bryophytes either, because that just doesn't seem to work either. So, yeah, I would just love to know how it works.
Lovely. Well, let's hope one day you will be the one to find the answer to that.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, thanks a lot. Lovely. Can you tell us why this area that you work in, why this area of research into fossil plants is important?
Okay. Sometimes when you're in a room full of people who are sort of working on genes to improve wheat breeding and all of these wonderful things my colleagues do to work out how to feed more people on the planet, then yeah, absolutely. It's really difficult. I have to come up with why I'm spending my time thinking about fossil plants and teaching people about them. But it's when I talk to colleagues who are working on climate change and things like that, and we need to understand what happens on our planet over deep time, the idea of geological time. And in order to say sensible things about that, actually we need to have some knowledge about what those plants are in those environments and how they're interacting in an ecosystem. So yes, we can build climate models and CO2 models and all of that stuff, but we do actually have to have that underlying taxonomy and that underlying information about what those plants are in order for that to be a meaningful kind of projection. So I'd say that's why studying fossil plants is important, as well as just being intrinsically really, really interesting.
Absolutely, and why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we study things that are intrinsically interesting and that
Absolutely.
excite us? Okay, thank you very much. I'd like you to try to share with us some of your thoughts on being a woman working in science, balancing the demands of family life with a career.
It is certainly something that we talk a lot about, and I think quite rightly. Things are certainly better than I think. I mean, I did my PhD a long time ago now, and I think things have definitely improved. I think the nature of the problems has changed a little. So I mean, I don't see any of that sort of explicit sexism or anything anymore. I think as a woman in a geology department a few decades ago, I think that was more common. I think sometimes the nature of it is it's quite sort of it's sort of unconscious and just there in the background a bit, like as if you're the woman in a department, there's a sort of expectation that you are more likely to do the outreach and you're more likely to do a bit more of the being the approachable person for the students, and that all leads into your time. So I think it's sort of insidious things like that rather than overt good old-fashioned sexism. In terms of balancing it with a family, I think it depends on your own support networks and the people that you work with. And similarly for that, I think things have improved, but I think there's still a way to go in terms of it being a fair playing field.
Thank you. There are issues with the gender balance in the hierarchy, and I guess that's widespread. Yeah. Has that got better?
I think that's getting better. I mean, certainly at Nottingham, that's got better. In the last round of promotions, both me and my colleague Mandy, we both got promoted to Associate Professor, which is really good news. And yeah, you can see more women moving through to full professor and everything. So I think things are improving. I think it's patchy and variable depending on where you are. I think there is still a bit of that kind of the old boys network thing is still there at the highest bits. And it's sort of that sort of frustrating sort of glacial speed at which things are moving.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. So a bit better, but still a lot of work.
Direction of travel is right. If it could be a bit quicker.
Speed it up, please. So you are, I believe, the Nottingham School of Biosciences lead for outreach.
Yeah.
Just mentioned this. Also a fellow of the Higher Education Academy, and you work with the media. Okay. How important is outreach and working with the media for scientists in this century?
I think that scientists talking to the media is really, really important. I think in the absence of scientists doing that, then all sorts of ridiculous stories. If we don't make the stories, the media will, because that's what they're designed to do. And likewise, outreach work, talking to young people, talking to children, getting them interested and excited in our science. If we want our sciences, so if we want botany to thrive, we need to explain to young people and children why it's interesting, why they should want to get involved, and express our enthusiasm for them as well. I occasionally meet people who say, oh yes, all scientists should communicate. And then I think actually, there are some scientists who are doing absolutely top flight research, who are absolutely brilliant at communicating through writing papers and that kind of thing, but actually communicating to other audiences may not be their strengths. And actually, I think it's a team approach. And I think some of us, I mean, I've sort of specialised in doing bits of science communication. I think some of us, we enjoy it and it suits us and great for us. I think that some scientists, it's never going to be their strength, and actually they don't need to do it. I think it's a kind of a working as a team, and as long as you're working in a team where someone can communicate the science really well, I think that's the best approach. I think that's great.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Getting close to the end here. Question 8. Okay, our Botanical University Challenge alumni are all undergrad, masters or PhD students. What advice would you give to any young person looking to include plants in their career journey?
It's a really good question. I think that for different people, that's going to be a different thing. I would say if you are passionate about plants, so my advice to students is always study something that you're really interested in, because that way you're going to stay motivated and you're going to enjoy it. Also, be open to lots of different experiences, things like getting work experience, things like placements. Even if they're not directly related to your absolute passion, doing things that are sort of a sideways move from what you're doing means you've got more strings to your bow, so that you can always, you might find that you work in something, and then actually when you're applying for the next big sort of botanically or ecologically related job, actually you've got some web content experience, or you've got some experience in project management, or all of those kinds of things that you might not think are directly relevant. They might actually be directly relevant for the next sort of plant focused job that you apply for, because you've done other things. I think that would be my advice.
Lovely, thank you. But study what interests you first.
Yeah, do that first.
Keep your eyes open, and your networking, which is again why Botanical
Absolutely.
University Challenge is potentially so valuable, because it helps with on that networking for our plant savvy students. Okay, we're down to the last question now. So if Botanical University Challenge was a plant, what might it be?
So I'm going to twist the question a little bit. So what I've got here is I don't know if you can see this, I've got a lump of an ancient rock. This is 400 million years old. This is a lump of Rhynie Chert. So this is a preservation of one of the earliest land ecosystems, and it's got some of the earliest land plants in it. So lots of different species of these different plants, all building this tiny little ecosystem that's going to blossom into all of the different plants of groups and the diversity that we see today. So that's sort of what I think Botanical University Challenge represents, in a way, is this ecosystem of sort of botanists of interacting and building a big network.
What a wonderful answer. Wonderful end to a great interview. It's been lovely talking to you.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Susie. Thank you very much.